Hello, guys. Good morning or good afternoon by the time this is uploaded. I don't know when I'll upload it, but sometime. Welcome back to episode 12 of the Night Castle. I am your host, Demetrius Montero, with my co host,
Matthew Feldman, welcome back, guys.
and we are the UCF sports writers for the UCF Roundtable. We post daily. I will have the QR code somewhere top left, top right at the end of the episode so you can create an account and join and interact with us. But today, we got a lot to talk about because it's been a while since we had our last episode. A little men's hoops catch up. They had 3 games since our last episode, and a surprising snub. A surprising snub. We'll get into that a little bit later. And football spring camp. Coach Scott Frost had a presser with the general manager as well. So we'll kind of tap into that and give our little thoughts and what we think the 2026 spring camp will look like. But first, let's catch up the men's hoops. Like I said, there are 3 games that were played since our last episode, and those 3 games were 3 wins. It was against Colorado, Arizona State, and an upset against then number 11 Texas Tech. So Matthew, you did the gamers for Colorado and Arizona State. Um, what are like your quick rapid fire thoughts on the team's performance in those 2 victories?
Yeah, obviously two big wins going into the big daddy win of Texas Tech. I think that those two wins provided a lot of needed momentum going into that game. It was actually kind of a tale of two different games. Colorado, we were scorching hot from the field. We shot over 70% from three in the first half, and then 60% for the whole game. Um, Riley Kugel got back on track after struggling. He had 21 points. Themis Folks had 19. Uh, but the bench scoring was really the story for me. Devin Cambridge had 11. He made two threes. Carmelo Pacheco, who's been on fire as of late, he made all three of his threes. And then Chris Johnson made two threes and added 10 points as well. So the bench was huge, especially when Riley Kugel got in foul trouble early. He did most of his damage in the second half. So having those guys out there producing was huge during his absence. And then Arizona State, like I said, it was very different. We struggled from deep. The first 35 minutes of the game, we shot 2 of 16 from three, which is not good. And then the last 5 minutes, we shot 5, which we had a 95% chance to lose the game, according to ESPN, their little analytics that they do throughout the game. And we came back from double digits with 5.5 minutes to play and won. I think that's a big reason why we played so well against Texas Tech. We'll get into that, but that I like to think that that kind of win where you struggle and you're down most of the game and you storm back at the end and kind of put your foot on the gas. I think that's almost more. I don't want to say important, but more encouraging to the guys than just blowing them out. Like Arizona State isn't a great team, but there's no nights off in the Big 12, and we did what we needed to do to get the win. It wasn't very pretty for 35 minutes, but those last 5 minutes, like it gives me hope that they can turn it up when they need to.
Yeah, those are 2 really good wins. Going to Arizona State, Dawkins mentioned he talked about their intensity and their play style. The team's play style doesn't really change much from game to game, but the intensity does kind of ramp up in a position where you're super close to losing, right? Like you said, they had a 5% chance to win with down 11. I believe there's, 5 minutes and 30 seconds left when they were down 11. So that's a pretty much at that point, almost statistically impossible. So to overcome a 11-point deficit and pull out the victory is really nice. You got a 2-game winning streak out of that before hosting Texas Tech. And to get on the Texas Tech, I did the gamer for that, and from start to finish, it felt like the Knights held position, like stood their ground. I saw a stat from the men's hoops Twitter or X. Ugh, um, that they led for 36 minutes and 6 seconds. So 36 minutes and 6 seconds of a 40-minute game, you led against a out of top 10 team. They were 11 at the time. Now they're the 13th ranked team. So the fact that they held their ground for a majority of the game is very reminiscent of the time they upset Kansas at the beginning of the year to start conference playoff 1-0, and that's what got them into the AP top 25 until they fell out. But we have to talk about Themis, folks. We have to. Absolutely. His play when it comes to ranked opponents outside of Iowa State, which was an outlier game, he had 8 points, 5 assists, 6 turnovers. He's averaging 18, almost 19 points, 3 rebounds, and almost 6 assists against ranked opponents. Having that from your point guard, he it's it's great to have that because he can get to his spots. He has his patented turnaround floater. It very much reminds me of John Morant. If you guys seen some highlights of John Morant, it was a couple seasons ago. I don't think he has that in the bag as much now, but when he got to the paint and he would hit his floater, that was his go-to, and it felt like he always made it. So Themis has that shot, that floater down pat, and he's just a playmaker through and through. He's gonna get the big guys involved, right? He helped John Bull record a new career high. Bull had 14 points. I think a good portion of them came from folks' assist. So to have a stable guy at that guard position who could score and play make, as Dawkins said in the post game press conference, he helps set the tone on both ends of the floor. So he's very crucial to UCF's victories in general. But when it comes against ranked teams, it's just a little bit more. There's a little bit more juice to that, and he's earned a lot of recognition. He has his second starting five appearance, and he's the first Knight to have two. So I think this is his second in a row as well.
I think so.
Um, so if it is, that again, that's just something else. Um, John Rothstein also posted on X. He said, you should have bought stock a long time ago in Themis, folks. You
Right.
should have, absolutely. And the fact that you have such a, you know, cool, calm, and collected player at that position, such an important position, it's why the Knights are 17-4. It's why at one point they were a top 25 ranked team, right? Now, after upsetting Texas Tech, they did not crack the AP top 25 poll, which is honestly quite shocking because this is their second upset victory and they're on a 3-game winning streak in the Big 12 for the first time since they entered the conference. So they're rolling. They're clicking on all cylinders and they're as I forgot where I saw it from, who I saw it from. I think he's an Iowa State. He's an Iowa State guy. He covers the Cyclones, and every time I think after every game or almost after every couple games, he posts on X um, a it's kind of like a chart where it's like this team bad, this team okay, this team is a tournament lock, and UCF was in that category as a tournament lock. So for the first time since 2019, the Knights are on track to make the NCAA tournament, and they've done so in what feels like historic fashion. They 2 upset victories. Dawkins keeps adding more to his resume. I think he has over 80% of the upset ranked victories as a Knights head coach. So there just needs to be a little bit more respect and a little bit more recognition for UCF because a lot of college basketball analysts were praising UCF for upsetting Texas Tech. There were a lot of tweets about it. Again, John Rothstein, um, Dick Vitale, Jeff Goodman, right? So there were some legendary college basketball analysts really praising UCF for what they did, and the Knights have another opportunity at doing that tomorrow against Houston. Now, Houston's going to be a tough matchup, but again, as I mentioned, Themis folks rises to the occasion against ranked competition. So yeah, we'll see. Do you have any preliminary thoughts on Houston? Because they have Kingston Fleming. Kingston Fleming dropped 42 points, or just above 42. I forgot. I have to look at that again. But he dropped, over 40 points a couple games ago, and I think he's uh, a lock for the lottery in the NBA draft this upcoming summer. So, do you have any preliminary thoughts on Houston?
Yeah, I mean, um, they're going to be tough. I would say probably the best team that we've played outside of Arizona. Um, Houston always has a very good home court advantage. They also suffocate you with your defense. So going on the road and trying to play against a defense that plays like that, and they're so tenacious, and you know how they play. But it's going to be tough. It's a very different Houston team than we're accustomed to. Usually, they have a lot of experience, a lot of older guys that they've kind of worked throughout their years. But this year, it's more of a balance. You mentioned Kingston Flemings. I mean, I would take him within the top 5 if I would had that decision, but, he's a dynamic guard. He can jump, he can shoot, he can get to his spots. I think he leads the team in assists too. So he's gonna be kinda like their Themis Folks almost, starting the offense, setting the table for his teammates. And then they have another freshman, a big man, Chris Sanak. He's also probably gonna be one and done, first rounder. He can stretch the floor a little bit. He's big. He attacks the glass. And then, of course, they have a lot of experience around those guys. So, they're a tough team. If we figure this one out and find a way to win in Houston, I think that we have no chance but to be ranked next week. Um, I'll talk a little bit about the snub. I It doesn't make much sense to me. I mean, I get that, we're relatively new to the scene, you could say. So I think maybe it has something to do with that. At the end of the day, the AP, they are politics. They put the teams in that they want. That so, putting Texas A&M in at that 25 spot, even though we had a better week than them and beat them head to head in their stadium, if you use the college football playoff logic and said, "Here's Miami, here's Notre Dame, here's UCF, here's Texas A&M," that I mean, we would beat them in easily. But it's just good to get these wins. The AP poll, it's nice to be ranked. It's a cool thing to have, especially for us who we don't have that luxury often. But it's not the end of the world. It's okay. We still have a chance. Honestly, if we lose to Houston and win the next 2 games, I think we even still could be ranked depending how we look. Um, yeah, I was confused when I saw it, but it's okay. I mean, the boys are gonna keep working. They're gonna keep, getting better. Um, you know, I watched Texas Tech and Kansas play last night, and I'm sitting there watching 2 top 15 teams that UCF beat, and those 2 teams are both, I would say national championship contenders, but UCF has the ability, and we've shown that, especially on our home floor. Um, the students got to storm the court twice against Texas Tech on Sunday.
Oh yeah, that was funny. We could talk about that a little bit too.
Yeah, I mean, the Texas Tech win, you pretty much hit all the bases. John Bull, I was very impressed with. I think that was his by far best game as a Knight. He had a double double earlier in the year against FAU, but obviously, Texas Tech is a step up from that. Um, he's getting better. Him from game one to now, very different. He looks a lot more coordinated. He looks a lot more comfortable with the ball. Kind of looks like he knows where he's supposed to be out there, like not lost in dead space. So yeah, it's all promising. I think it's looking up. And then you mentioned Themis. When these teams that aren't supposed to go far in March Madness go far, it's usually because of a dominant guard, couple dominant guards being able to shoot the ball. And that's what we do. We can shoot the ball. We have a trusty point guard, and Kugel is that guy who could get hot at the right time and steal a couple games in the tournament. So I'm very excited to see how the rest of the season goes. And like you said, we should be in line for getting back to March Madness for the first time in a long time. So I'm excited.
Yeah, I am too. 17 wins. I remember I wrote a story on UCF pacing well to the NCAA tournament, and the graphic was separated into like free win, can win, must win, and upset. I think the Knights have completed 3 of those categories. The upset, they only needed to win one of those 6 games. They won 2, so they overachieved there. I think they got the free win. They got I think it was must win or should win.
Yeah,
One of
those
those two categories. Huh?
graphic you're talking about. I've
Yeah.
seen that. I think they
Uh,
got all the should wins,
yeah.
and I think that was
So
just
I mean they're pacing extremely well. Like you would need an honest meltdown to not make the tournament. But they've fared well in Big 12 play. They are 6-3, which is honestly that's pretty good. That's way better than
very
what they
good.
had last season. So to we'll close the chapter there, and we're gonna head to football. You know, Coach Scott Frost and the general manager, the UCF general manager, had a press conference last week, kind of talk about the transfer portal cycle and the team's activity, just kind of some players that they're gonna look out for, etc. And it's you finally get a look of what Frost and the team want to do next season, especially with the new coaches that have come in. So, uh, hmm, let's see. I blanked, but yeah. When I watched it, and I wrote a story on it too, recently about the running backs because l- when I was really looking at it last season, we had a problem with positional clarity. So last season it was the quarterbacks, right? And because you had Cam Fancher who won the starting battle initially, then Taven Jackson took it because Cam got injured and he played well, and then he got injured. Ja'Cory Brown came in. He had a couple passes against Kansas State. He gets injured. Jackson comes back. He plays well for the next couple games. Um, then he gets injured against Houston in the space game in the fourth quarter with a hamstring injury. Davi Belfort comes in, has a great, excellent drive, probably the best of his Knights tenure, and he doesn't touch the field much again. And so you didn't really have a lot of positional clarity at the quarterback position um, last season, but you have that this season with Alonzo Barnett the third. Frost has already said like, "Yo, this is our starter. This is our guy." The quarterback battle is for the backups. It's for the 2 and 3 spot, and that's where Keon Jenkins, who comes from Florida International, and Caleb Bennett, who comes from Boise State, they'll battle it out. You also have the 2 new freshmen coming in, Rocco Marriott and Dante Carr, so they'll probably battle it out there. But now you have positional clarity at the quarterback position. Now getting back to the running back spot, last season you had that clarity. You had Miles Montgomery, Jaden Nixon, in the BYU game. Frost went to Ajimidadai. So you had a little bit of clarity at that position. Going into this season, going into spring camp, not so much because you have 7 guys. Frost already kind of did the same thing with the quarterback position. He named the top 3 guys in the running back. So it's the transfers Duke Watson and Landon Chambers and Tavion Swint, who the Knights are getting back from injury. So he's very excited to have the former 4-star running back from Osceola High School back. And just the rest goes on from there. That's really going to be the battle that you should look out for is who's going to be the lead running back. Who's going to get who's going to be the workhorse, and then who's going to be that explosive dynamic playmaker that isn't going to get as much carries as the workhorse, but is going to make those explosive plays that Jaden Nixon did. He's going to break off those 60, 70-yard runs. He may return a kickoff for a touchdown, right? Or a punt for a touchdown. You never know. Just someone who can make those big dynamic plays. And both transfers, Watson and Chambers, have also shown a little bit of versatility in the passing game. So the trend with UCF running backs is they're always going to have some kind of versatility. They're going to run the ball primarily, obviously, but they're also going to be able to catch the ball and be versatile, make some extra plays downfield when need be. So, Matthew, what are your thoughts on the Knights transfer portal activity and heading into the 2026 spring camp?
Yeah, I mean, I was pleased with what they had to say. It seemed like they were happy, Frost and Mossbrucker, about the team they had constructed. Um, I think the biggest point is the one you made, that we have a quarterback. It's set in stone. That hasn't been the case. Definitely not last year. Um, and even when we had KJ Jefferson, when he started to struggle, we jumped ship and played about everyone that we had. So it's good to see that he's sticking with the guy early. He spoke very highly of Barnett. He said that, even like not talking about his talent, he's just great around the other guys, around the other teammates. He said he's a leader, like you can just tell from the way that he carries himself in the locker room, and that he's super competitive. And we need a little bit of an edge. We haven't been very successful. Um, we've struggled ever since you know John Rice Plumlee left. I think that was the best option we had at quarterback since I've been here, at least, most consistent. So having Barnett is big. They also talked about bringing in a balance of young talent and experienced talent. I think Barnett obviously fills that void for the experience, and we went after a lot of mid-major, smaller school guys that have shown that they can produce. I like that strategy. I think that those guys are the most hungry. They understand what this means for them too. Like, we're not only taking a chance, they're not taking a chance on us. We're kinda taking a chance on them. Can they come up to the big level and do it? Cole Kozlowski was a big, example of that last year. He played at Colgate his whole career and then moved up to UCF for his lone season of Power 4 football and was all Big 12 third team. So, getting guys like that that have something to prove, they know they can play at this level, I think that's almost better than bringing in guys from other schools that, may have an attitude about it, or "Why am I here?" That kinda thing. So I think it's good to do that, and then obviously bringing in the young talent. We got Tyron Horns. He was the latest commit, out of high school. He actually is from my hometown in Sarasota. He went to Booker, but he is now the highest ranked recruit in UCF football history after having a jump, um, at the Under Armour All-American game. He won MVP of the event 2 years ago and then returned this year, where he actually announced his commitment to UCF. But he was amazing again. I saw a couple highlights of him. I know he caught 1 touchdown in the game at least, but he jumped 14 spots after that weekend in the wide receiver class. He's now the 12th ranked receiver in the class. And yeah, his 4-star composite ranking, according to 24/7 Sports, is the highest ever, from a UCF commit. So having him joining, like I said, an experienced wide receiver room, Speedy Thomas, uh, you know, Dylan Wade coming back off his historic season, having those guys, Wade and Charles, who's going to be, in line for another big jump his sophomore year. That's some skill position pieces to be excited about if you're, Coach Frost. And we've struggled at that wide receiver group since Javon Baker and Kobe Hudson left. So having talented pieces like that is big. They also talked about recruiting toughness. They wanted to look for people who are tough. He said the experience usually breeds toughness because they've seen it all. They've played a lot of football. But these are all good terms. They seemed very happy up there. That's another thing. Like, they seemed very genuinely happy about the people they have brought into the building. So I think it'll definitely be a jump. I think it'll definitely be an improvement. Um, but yeah, the running back is a big question mark. That's really the biggest right now. Um, I think it's going to be Duke Watson if I had to make an early prediction, just from what I've heard from some of my friends that are Louisville fans, that he's like that, and he actually led the country in yards per carry as a freshman. So I think he'll be able to come in and have an impact early. But I'm excited. I think it's going to be a much better season, and hopefully we can get back to bowl contention.
Yeah, I'm excited too. Honestly, I want to clarify with the running back clarity. It's a good problem to have that you have 7 running backs, and you've kind of already clarified which top 3 are going to be fighting for those lead position, those lead running back snaps. So it's a good problem to have. It's not like they're you're going in and out from one running back to the next to the other to the next just because of an injury. Having that many playmakers is really good. It's always a good problem to have many playmakers. Will some get underutilized? Yes, but having an extra playmaker here and having an extra playmaker there is always a luxury. So the fact that Frost has that and he's already kind of narrowed down who's going to be at least in the running for lead and backup running back is pretty good. It's a good sight, and the future of that running back room is going to be bright, especially because there's a mix of young and experienced players, right? You have some guys who still have about 2 years of eligibility left. So it's not like you're going to have one and done running backs who are on their last year eligibility. You got guys you can still develop, guys who can still show that they belong in a Power Four football conference. So, like you said, I'm excited for what the 2026 spring camp will be like. And then when fall camp comes around, it's the same sentiment. And then when the season comes around, you just hope everything comes together and the Knights are a bowl team for the first time in 2 years because they missed the last two. So outside of outside of spring camp, we got some other interesting football news, UCF related. Well, UCF tied, not necessarily related in the fact that it's happening on campus. But Matt, I'm gonna let you break the news because you wrote a story about it.
Yeah.
So tune in.
Yeah, so former UCF coach Gus Malzahn announced his retirement at the age of 60. He had 35 years in college football, started as offensive coordinator, most notably won the BCS National Championship in 2010 with Auburn and Cam Newton as his quarterback. He got his first coaching gig 2 years after that at Arkansas State. He instantly turned them around. They were 4-8, turned into a 9-3 team, won the Sun Belt, uh, and that was his only year with the Red Wolves before he moved on back to Auburn. This time as the head coach, he was there for 7 seasons. They made the national championship again in a losing effort against Jameis Winston and the Seminoles, but he had an impressive tenure there. He finished top 5 in all-time program wins, and then he moved on to UCF where, first 2 years were smooth sailing. He got us a 9-win season his first year and a Gasparilla Bowl win over UF. Um, After that game, he had a quote talking about how he really believed that he could win a national championship at UCF. Um, I think at that time, that was the that was kind of the trajectory that UCF was on. Obviously, that didn't work out, but he was always, he was a fun guy to have on the sideline. He was very creative with his play calling. Um, he's credited with kind of pioneering the no huddle offense. He was kind of the first to use that consistently in college football. So it was always fun to watch him. It didn't always work out how we planned, and obviously his tenure didn't end as we planned. He didn't achieve everything he wanted to achieve here, but um, I have no hard feelings against the guy. He was good for while we had him, and also his leaving to FSU was cordial. I'll say he resigned, which meant that we didn't have to pay him his buyout, so it saved us a lot of money. I think it was like $12 million he saved us
Yeah, it was.
by doing it. So, he obviously loved his time here. He didn't have any hard feelings about leaving. He just wanted to, try something new as an offensive coordinator, and they were even successful last year. They were one of the best offenses in the country. They had a really hot start, um, but good for him for a successful career, and I wish him nothing but the best.
Yeah, me too. When you retire and you really, I guess for him, hang the headphones up.
Yeah.
um, because in every other sport, it'd be basketball. You hang the shoes up. Football, you hang the cleats up. I guess for him, it's hanging the headset up. So, I mean, to have that story career over 35 years, it's really impressive. And you left your mark on college football. Top 5 in program wins. And you could say you did that. You could tell your grandchildren that I'm top 5 in program wins
Right.
and all of that. And it's really good to see that you know you get to enjoy life after football. Uh, you, I think we all know what it takes to be good, what it takes to be great in professional sports. Uh, and it takes a lot. It takes a lot of sacrifice. It takes a lot of grueling hours. Early mornings, late nights, and you did that over 35 years. You know, you deserve a break.
Yeah.
You deserve to have a nice, I'm gonna kick you back with my wife. I'm gonna kick you back with the kids, and just kind of live it out and enjoy football from a fan perspective. I can finally sit on the couch, watch football, and not have to scream at my players to get a play right. Jarrell, run the route right. uh, but yeah, shout out to Gus Malzahn and his great 35-year career as a football coach, and enjoy retirement, have fun, and that's pretty much it. That'll be it for episode 12 of the KnightCASTle. I'm your host Demetrius Montero with my co-host,
Matthew Feldman. Thank you guys.
and as I mentioned before, we're the UCF sports writers for UCF Roundtable, and as every content creator does, you always have to do the call to action at the end of the episode.
Yep.
So let me get that up. So of course, make sure you guys like and subscribe. Hit the bell for notifications whenever we post our new episode. So hit the bell for next episode, episode 13, when we come back for that, because that will definitely have uh, UCF's matchup against number 10 Houston. So definitely tune in for that next episode. And always have the QR code top left. Make sure. Have you ever heard of the top left meme?
Mm-mm.
You haven't? You gotta look that up.
I like
But QR code on the top left, and if you're watching this on another device that isn't your phone, computer, TV, make sure you pull your phone out, scan the QR code, become a part of the UCF Roundtable, where you can interact with our stories, and just interact with the community in general. Make community posts on any new UCF information you find, like something niche, right? Something that you want the community to know. Put that in there, and just continue to interact with us. And yeah, that'll be it. So we hope you guys have a good rest of your day, and we'll see you in the next episode. Peace.
it.